You should ask your husband where he goes every Thursday.
The first time Margaret said something strange, Alex's wife ignored it. But the second time, she couldn't, because the neighbor knew something about her husband, something she had never told anyone. When Alex and his wife moved from Nigeria to the UK, they believed they were beginning a completely new chapter of their lives. A new country, new opportunities, a quieter life. They rented a small 2-bedroom terraced house in a peaceful neighborhood just outside Manchester. The street was calm, almost too calm. There was no loud music from nearby houses, no neighbors calling out greetings across the street, and there was definitely none of the familiar noise and energy they were used to back in Lagos. At first, the silence felt peaceful, but sometimes it also felt strange. On the day they moved in, while they were still carrying boxes into the house, someone knocked on the door. When Alex's wife opened it, she saw an elderly British woman standing there with a warm smile. In her hands was a small tray of biscuits.
Hello, dear. I'm Margaret. I live next door. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind.
Margaret seemed kind. Very kind. At least that's what Alex's wife thought at the time. A few days later, while taking out the trash, she ran into Margaret again. The elderly woman greeted her warmly.
You must be settling in well now.
We're trying.
Alex's wife nodded politely. We're trying. Everything is still new. Then Margaret said something unexpected.
Your husband came home quite late yesterday.
Alex's wife blinked. Yes. Because of work, she replied.
Because of work.
Margaret nodded thoughtfully.
Night shifts can be very tiring.
At first, the comment didn't seem important. Maybe Margaret had simply noticed his car arriving late.
No.
But then she added something else.
And he left very early this morning too.
Now that was strange, because Alex had left the house before sunrise. And she was almost certain Margaret couldn't have seen that. About a week later, Margaret knocked on the door again. This time she brought a small homemade pie. They sat together in the living room and talked for a while. Margaret asked many questions about Nigeria, about Lagos traffic, about the weather back home. She seemed genuinely curious. Then suddenly, Margaret looked around the house and said something that made Alex's wife pause. You didn't cook yesterday, did you? Her stomach tightened. Because Margaret was right. The night before, she had been too tired to cook, so she ordered takeaway instead. How did you know? Margaret simply shrugged. But something about the way she said it made Alex's wife feel uneasy. A few days later, while watering the small plants outside the house, she saw Margaret again. The elderly woman stood quietly for a moment, watching her. Then she said something that changed everything.
You should ask your husband where he goes every Thursday.
Alex's wife froze. What do you mean? She asked slowly. Margaret tilted her head slightly. Oh, nothing, dear. Just something I noticed. Her voice became sharper. My husband works late on Thursdays. Margaret didn't argue. She simply nodded and said quietly, That's what he told you. Then she turned and walked back into her house, leaving Alex's wife standing there confused. That night, sleep did not come easily. Alex returned home late as usual. He looked exhausted. She wanted to ask him about Thursdays, but she didn't. Instead, she simply watched him. And one question kept running through her mind. How did Margaret know so much about their lives?
Let's pause for a moment. If you were in her position, would you confront your spouse immediately or quietly investigate first? Think about it. Because that was the decision she had to make.
The following Thursday, Alex left the house again in the evening, just like he always did. But this time something was different. Alex's wife waited for a few minutes. Then she grabbed her coat and followed him. Her heart was pounding the entire time, because if Margaret was right, everything she believed about her marriage might change. But Alex did not drive to his workplace. Instead, he stopped at a small building about 15 minutes away. It wasn't a bar. It wasn't a restaurant. It was a community center. Curious, she parked across the street and watched. Then she saw something that brought tears to her eyes. Inside the building were several African immigrants, men and women who looked nervous and unsure. Standing at the front of the room was Alex. He was encouraging them, helping them understand how to find jobs and accommodation. One woman hugged him gratefully and said, "Thank you for helping us. We didn't know who to call." In that moment, everything became clear. Alex wasn't hiding something bad. He was helping people, quietly, every Thursday night. The next morning, Alex's wife walked next door and knocked on Margaret's door. When the elderly woman opened it, she asked one simple question. How did you know? Margaret smiled
My
softly.
late husband started
My
that
late
program
husband
years
started
ago.
that program years ago,
What?
she said.
I still
Alex's
volunteer
wife
there
blinked in
sometimes.
surprise.
That's how I saw your husband helping people. You married a good man.
Sometimes life places unexpected people in our path, even a curious neighbor, just to reveal the truth. Let me ask you something. If your neighbor told you something suspicious about your spouse, would you believe them or ignore it? Say honestly in the comments. And if you enjoy stories about relationships, life lessons, and unexpected truths, don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes the truth behind a story is more powerful than suspicion. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.